The 627th edition of the Four Corners podcast starts right now.
This is the Four Corners podcast.
Elton ready on his second attempt. That one is no good. They battle for it. Loose ball. Recovered Marvin. He scores. 17 seconds left. And he was fouled. Here we go. Lawson with a runner. No. The rebound. Hansbrough at the gun. Got it.
They were 4 for 24.
Hansbrough on a switch on Paulus. A deep three. And Green rips down the rebound in traffic. 4-on-1.
Great job. What a terrific job in transition. I mean, you couldn't plan that any better as a coach.
Tipped away by Johnson. It's loose. Page. Johnson.
They're dancing in the aisles. They're high-fiving. They're celebrating. They're going bananas on Franklin Street.
Pass to Britt, 15 seconds to play. Up high to Page, gets a screen from Meeks. Page driving in on the left, high off the glass for two. Louisville with 7 seconds. Jones has it, goes left corner, Black's here for three. Back iron, 1 second to play, stick up, no! Carolina wins it! The Tar Heels win it! 72-71. 6 seconds to go. Pinson comes front court. Pinson to May for the win. Got it! Luke May! He got it! 0.3 of a second! Luke May gives Carolina the 75-73 lead. Are you kidding me?
Inside 30 overall. Love, top of the key. Oh! Big time delivery.
Here are your hosts, Josh Marlowe and Anthony Pagnotta.
Hello and welcome into another live edition of the Four Corners podcast. We are powered by Carolina Electrical Services. Josh and Anthony here with you guys on a Saturday night. About 5.5 hours or so after Carolina did improve to 9-1 on the season. They beat USC Upstate 80-62 this afternoon at the Smith Center. And we're here to recap that win. We're here to talk about the good, some of the bad, and not necessarily the ugly, but just an overall uneven performance from Carolina. It wasn't the best effort we've seen. It wasn't the best defensive performance we've seen so far. And that kind of, overshadows a really efficient offensive performance from Carolina. And we're here to talk about all of that. We'll take a look at the box score. You'll hear from head coach Hubert Davis and his thoughts on the win. We'll give our stat of the game, thoughts, takeaways, game balls, and so much more. But we start with just our initial, just to recap, Carolina wins 80-62 to improve 9-1 on the 2025-2026 season. It's their best start since the 2017-28 year for Carolina. And so that's something to be, I guess, somewhat excited about. Carolina, though, did trail in this game, and this is where the uneven performance stuff really starts to really set in. Carolina trailed in this game at the under 8 timeout of the first half. It was just 21-20 at the under 8 timeout. USC Upstate actually led 21-18 after they went on an 8-0 run after they called a timeout after Carolina went up 18-13 and felt like Carolina was about to take control of the game. After that media timeout, Carolina would be an extended 14-0 run to build a double-digit lead, and they would effectively never look back. But this game was, 58-50 at the under 8 mark in the second half, and it was 65-54 with about 5.5 minutes to go. Carolina in control, but yet the game was not effectively over, if you will. But Carolina closes on a 12-2 run to be able to pull away for an 18-point victory. 4 players scored in double figures, led by the freshman Caleb Wilson and his 20-point and 11-rebound double-double. His 7th double-double as a Tar Heel. I think it's his 4th 20-point double-double in his UNC career. Jonathan Powell, Luka Bogovac, Henry Vassar, the other guys in double-figure scoring. And another note, with Carolina allowing 62 points, 62 points. This is now the 10th straight game they've allowed 75 points or less, the longest streak since 2019, 2020, and they're closing in on the all-time mark in program history, which was held by the 1997-1998 team. And so when you look at it on paper, you see an 18-point win. You look at the box score, which we'll dive into deeper here in just a moment. You see a really efficient offensive performance from Carolina where they shoot the ball well from the field. They shoot the ball well from outside. You have 4 guys in double-figure scoring, but we were there on Media Row. We were in the arena, and it was just a game where you could just tell that Carolina was not sharp. They weren't focused, and for a team that we've credited so far this season for playing hard and competing at almost every turn, that was not what we saw on display this afternoon in the Smith Center.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, as you said, an uneven performance. I mean, for this group, it was one of the more disappointing performances that we've seen from them because you were expecting so much more from these guys. You were expecting this group to come out prepared, be ready to go, and it seemed like this was a group that got, a little thrown off by the fact that there wasn't the environment that they're probably used to in the Smith Center. They were coming off of a week of exams. So I guess in their mind, it was just one of those weeks that was a little bit quirky, and they came out and looked rather unprepared for this game. And Hubert Davis said that in the post game. He talked about the fact that this team did not come ready for this game. And so I think that's the reason why you saw the results that you saw. You saw a team that wasn't necessarily as dominant on the glass as they probably should have been. You saw USC Upstate really hang around in the first half because of some of their three-point shooting. Things were a little bit easy for them at times on the offensive end of the floor, a little too easy. So definitely some areas that Carolina needs to clean up. But, a lot to like in this game as well. I mean, you look at the numbers from this game, and you would think that Carolina actually put together a really solid performance. I mean, they win the game by 18. Caleb Wilson has 20 and 11. Jonathan Powell with 17 points in this game. Luka Bogovac with 15 actually looks a little bit like the Luka that we thought we were going to get when you first got him out of the transfer portal. And that's right. A rather quiet 14 and 9 from Henry Vasar in this game. And so, I mean, yeah, this is the thing. It was not the best performance that Carolina could have put together. But the good news is they at least closed the game strong, sort of the reverse of what they did in the game against Navy, where they let them hang around, took a lead, and then let them back into the game. This was one where USC Upstate was in the game for a little bit longer, but Carolina at the end is able to sort of sprint away from them and ultimately get the win. So, I mean, it's one of those types of wins that you just have to learn from. It's better that it comes in a win than a loss. And I think that's one of the things that Hubert Davis is probably preaching to his guys, but he's probably telling them, look, we can't, we can't be that easy on some of these teams that are rolling in here because, I mean, you've got East Tennessee State as your next game that is a warm-up for a game against Ohio State, a team that's not necessarily going to be that easy. It's not like they're one of the best teams that you faced on your schedule this year. They're not at the top. It's not quite Michigan State, but it certainly is a team that's going to give you a challenge, and they're going to have to give a much better effort than they gave today if they're going to come away with a win in that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it best. This was a 2:00 effort from what you saw from Carolina in an arena that was, I mean, maybe 75% full. There were over 17,000 people on hand, but most people weren't even there to watch a basketball game. If we're being completely honest, they were there to see the halftime performer, which was Mr. Beast, and what he did after the game. And I wish I was being hyperbolic, but that's, I mean, the loudest the game got was, or the arena got, was when he was introduced at halftime, which is a problem. But I mean, show up. I mean, this isn't church, folks. You're going to come to a game. By God, I like you're at a game to have some fun. Cheer, celebrate, be engaged. Lift your team up when you can tell that they were distracted. They hadn't played for over a week. They've taken, how many exams over the course of time. They had a little bit more time in the gym than they normally have the week of exams, but this is a game where the crowd could have definitely helped, but the crowd just simply was not engaged. And this is why, as coaches, Hubert, you saw, I think, Hubert Davis really kind of go through it today. And this was the game Roy Williams, when he was the head coach, always worried about the most, because you didn't have, when he was coaching, you didn't have a whole lot of time in the gym. The guys know that they're getting close to a holiday break where they do get to go home and spend time with family. And I don't want to make that less important than it is, because we all should be able to take time around the Christmas holiday to be able to do that. But you still got jobs to do. There's still games to be played, games to be won, and execution that needs to be achieved that just wasn't there consistently like it should have been against a team that was picked to finish last in the Big South. And I think that's the other thing here. Carolina entered the game, I think they were 22.5-point favorites according to ESPN's sports book. You didn't even cover, and it wasn't like this was a quality mid-major like Navy, who was picked to win the Patriot. St. Bonaventure hasn't even lost a game outside their loss to Carolina. They could be a legitimate contender in the A10. Radford, another school from this conference, a proud program, one that competes on the, for that conference championship on a year in, year out basis, and has shown well in the NCAA tournament. That's not what this team was. This was a team that you should have had the game over by the under-8 timeout in the first half, as opposed to trailing. The game should have been over by the under-8 timeout in the second half, and instead it was just a 3-possession ball game. And I think why I'm okay being, first off, critical and then frustrated by the performance and the effort is because of what this team has done leading up to this game. With the way that they've played, the way that they've competed, it looked like a team that was just bored with playing another quote-unquote bye game. I don't know. Maybe they saw Dan Hurley's tweet or his comment about playing bye games as UConn head coach, where he said that when he plays bye games, he wants to die. And maybe that got into their head. I don't know. But that's the first time really this season we've seen Carolina just look that disinterested, I think, in wanting to play and wanting to compete the way that we have seen them in the previous 9 games. So, but there's still a lot of fun here, a lot of good things to unpack, and we'll do that as we take a look here at the box score. I'll pull it up for you guys watching back at home. And Carolina shoots 51% from the field in this game. They shoot 28 of 55. They hold USC Upstate to just 38% shooting. The Spartans shoot 25 of 66. Carolina with one of their best 3-point shooting performances of the season. They go 10 of 23 from deep. That equates to 43% shooting. USC Upstate, one reason why they were able to hang around, they were 10 of 27 from behind the arc for 37%. Carolina left a lot of points at the foul line in this game, just 14 of 22 from the charity stripe. That it's just 64% shooting. They did a good job playing defense without fouling. Just 3 foul shots for USC Upstate. They go 2 of 3. Both teams value the basketball. They don't turn it over. Carolina 6 turnovers. That led to 5 points for the opposition. On the other hand, Carolina forces 7 turnovers. They score 11 points off of them. Rebounding, Carolina just +3 on the glass in this game, 37-34. And they won the defensive rebounding margin 30-23. They were out-rebounded on the offensive end 11-7 by USC Upstate. I'm gonna be upset, and I'm gonna be frustrated by that. Second chance points was even 11-11. Bench points, favor of Carolina, 25-14. Points in the paint, 30-22 in favor of Carolina. Fast break points, 10-4 in favor of Carolina. Carolina outblocked them 3-2. They outstole them 5-2. The Heels had 20 assists on their 28 made baskets. You love that. USC Upstate, 12 assists on their 25 made baskets. It says the game was tied one time. There were 2 different lead changes. All in all, Carolina led for 34 minutes and 17 seconds. That, of course, according to our good friends over at Stat Broadcast. So that's a look at the box score. And we've already got one comment here from Lenny Ryan, who it was a frequent, I know, listener, watcher of the podcast, telling us to chill. And okay, maybe you feel that way, and you have that right as a fan. But I'm not the only one frustrated. You're not the only one frustrated. Here's Hubert Davis's first answer. I went and pulled his answer that he delivered with Jones Angel. He does 2 different interviews after the game, one with Jones on the Tar Heel Sports Network, and then the one where he meets in the media room with all the reporters. And here's his first answer. It's about a minute and a half long. Him talking to Jones after today's win over USC Upstate, where they did not meet the expectations set for them by the head coach.
I felt like the times that we needed to step up, we needed to stop, we got it. When we needed to make a basket and execute on the offensive end, we did it. And you're right. I mean, shooting, over 50% from the field, something that I really like. You're sharing the basketball. To have 20 assists is 20 assists. That's real. So that was really good to see. But just the overall energy, enthusiasm, effort, that's what drives me. And it just wasn't there for long periods of time, and you could see that translate in our rebounding. We only got rebounded South Carolina Upstate by 3, and they got more offensive rebounds than us. That's all energy, effort, enthusiasm, and it's not an excuse that we just got done a week and a half of exams. We have jobs, we have wives, we have kids, we have families. There's a number of things that you have to take care of, and it doesn't take away the job of bringing that energy and that effort on every possession on both ends of the floor.
So there you go. That's Hubert Davis's first answer with Jones Angel. He reiterated that when he met with the media. Something that I pay a lot of attention to as a fan is the body language of my head coach. Because as a fan, I'm very energetic, very engaged with my team. When they play well, I cheer. When they play bad, I vent, complain, sometimes throw things, say bad words, so on and so forth. I mean, there was a timeout where I was sending out a tweet from the Heel Tough blog account about what was going on, where you pointed out that Hubert Davis was losing his mind in the huddle, was very frustrated. I saw Noah Weisskopf from Tar Heel 24/7. He tweeted out that at one point Hubert Davis was screaming at his players. Inside Carolina has an article up about Hubert Davis as they're going in the locker room, slamming his glasses down because he didn't like the way his team played at the end of the first half. We went back to the Navy game, and I was really interested to see the body language. And it was a coach that was not satisfied with how his team played. I think you saw that in today, where it was a classic Roy Williams. To me, it was Roy Williams 2.0, where his team was winning. His team, the box score would tell you that they played well, but in his mind, they weren't executing the way they executed. And I feel like year 1, year 2, Hubert doesn't vocalize his frustration that much. Probably would have been very happy and receptive for the way that the team played, how they battled through adversity, so on and so forth. That hasn't been the case with this team. And that's probably because he believes this team is capable of more than maybe some of those teams he had on early on in his coaching tenure. And so I think I like that, because I think this will set the scene for some spirited practices tomorrow and Monday before Carolina's next game, because I think you could tell from Hubert Davis from start to finish, while his team was winning on the scoreboard, he was not pleased with the level of execution he saw on the basketball court today. And I think that should be a welcome sign to Carolina fans, that you have a coach that's not going to rest on his laurels. He knows this team is capable of playing better, and he's going to push that button to make sure they play better on Tuesday night.
This is the second straight game that we've been at as media where you've gone down to, we didn't go down today, but if you were in the press conference, it sounded very similar. The message was that the team simply was not prepared, was not ready, did not bring the energy, effort, enthusiasm. Those are his big things, the 3 E's that he talks about all the time. And that was something that you didn't see really from this group today. And I think it was mainly on the defensive end of the floor. That was the frustrating part. And I told you a couple of times, throughout the game, it just felt like USC Upstate was able to get wherever they wanted to on the floor. It was too easy for them at times to be able to get to their spots. And that's something that we haven't seen yet this year from this Carolina team. For the most part, defensively, they've been locked in from the word go in every single game. It's at times the half-court offense that's really struggled. I thought today the half-court offense was pretty solid. I thought they got a lot of really good looks today, and I thought they took advantage of them. There were some layups that I think Carolina should have been able to convert on. There were some good looks from the outside that you would have liked to see them knock down, but it really was not an issue with the offensive performance. It was more what Carolina was doing defensively. And then, he talked about the rebounding. Carolina only out-rebounds this team by 3. And look, I gave credit to USC Upstate when we previewed this game. I said, look, this is a team that's averaging almost 39 rebounds per game. They are a team that, could catch Carolina maybe a little off guard. Thought maybe they might catch Carolina a little off guard where Carolina would out-rebound them by 10 or 8, somewhere in that area. Carolina to only out-rebound them by 3 and to allow them to have as much success as they did on the offensive glass. That was another thing I pointed out to you, was it felt like there were a lot of second chance opportunities for USC Upstate when they were missing some of these shots. And so, I get where his frustration comes from. I certainly wasn't thrilled with what I saw from the group, but at the same time, it is somewhat understandable. Coming off of the week that you just had, it does make a little bit of sense, but it's a message that you got to be locked in every single game. So maybe this is a good thing that this happened to this group today, that they struggled the way that they did against a South Carolina Upstate team that is projected to finish last in the Big South. And maybe this is going to have these guys ready for a game against East Tennessee State, have them ready for a game against East Carolina that they probably look at on the schedule and think is going to be easy. But as you've seen, you have to take all these games seriously, because if not, how are you going to have yourself prepared when it comes to conference season? I'm not saying that they won't be prepared, but that's the message to him, is that or should be the message for Hubert Davis to give to his guys is, look, you can't have these types of layoffs. You can't have these types of moments where you're just not prepared in conference play, because if you aren't prepared in conference play, you can get caught by some of these teams in the ACC.
Yeah, and look, some of this, you got to give the opponent some credit. Mason Medinger made some tough shots. Davis made some tough shots. And look, they took the air out of the ball. They waited until about 10, 12 seconds on the shot clock to really get into their action, but it just felt like too many times Evans, Derek Dixon, these guys just got beat to the spot and then just got bodied. The 3-pointers, some of them, were contested. A lot of them, like Caleb Wilson, gave up 3 threes because he just left his man on the perimeter and got caught in no man's land. And when they cross court, he can't, as good as gifted, as talented as he is, he can't recover and contest that shot. And so that's frustrating, because there was an effort and then there was a discipline thing where it's concerning. You only give up 22 points in the paint, which is a much better number than where Carolina's been at in some recent games. But it just felt like whenever Upstate wanted to get there, they were able to get there. You weren't taking away driving lanes. You weren't doing some of the things that we've seen them been able to do. Which is what I think, led to the frustration. And it kind of, I'm not going to say it mounted, but I think it just kind of permeated for Hubert Davis throughout the remainder of the game. We will address why we did not go to said press conference, because usually when you go to media, that's kind of why you go, is to hear what the players had to say, hear what the head coach had to say. The easy excuse would be that, hey, we got a 2.5-hour drive back home. We want to do a podcast for you guys. We wanted to stop and get some dinner. The difference, or the thing is that we wanted to go to eat at our favorite place, Merritt's in Chapel Hill. I wanted to go there on Sunday, found out they were closed on Sunday. Well, we thought they were open today, so we said, well, let's just go ahead and leave. Everyone stayed for Mr. Beast so we can get our sandwich, get something, and then be on the road by 5 o'clock. Turns out our favorite place, Merritt's, they close at 4:00. So we skipped today's press conference to eat a sandwich that we could not get, and instead we had to settle for Applebee's on the way home. A fine meal. I had a nice salad, had some good pretzel sticks, but it wasn't the Merritt's Club I've been thinking about now for well over 2 weeks.
It's a lack of preparation. It's a lack of preparation from us. We didn't bring the energy, effort, and enthusiasm to looking up the times that they are open. So we got to be better. It's a tough day for us.
Yeah. And I think the plan is for you to go on Tuesday night because of the 8:00 start and my work schedule. You might have to get one to go. You may have to spend the night, actually. Drive back to work the next morning and bring me a sandwich because your boy over here, he's going through withdrawals. Stat of the game, I went with bench points. Carolina plus 11 in that category. They get 25 bench points, led by Jonathan Powell. But you get a 3 from Derek Dixon, a 3 from Jaden Young, and a layup from James Brown. And look, Powell's the main one we're going to talk about. We'll talk about him more here in just a minute. But this was a game where Hubert Davis was searching. You saw Jaden Young play 7 minutes. This is the guy that has not really been a part of Carolina's rotation. James Brown, this is now the second time this year, I believe James Brown has been the first big man off the bench. He had a nice finish through some contact. He had a dive on the floor for a loose ball that Hubert Davis said in the postgame was the play of the game. That's how he's going to earn some minutes. Derek Dixon was in great. We'll talk about that more here in just a minute. But when you look at Young, you look at James Brown, at least until Seth Trimble comes back and Carolina gets a little bit more deeper, these are guys that Carolina could use to have some consistent production from. And you got that from those two guys tonight. It all trails what Jonathan Powell did, but a 25 bench point performance was really nice tonight, and we'll see how Carolina can build off of that with another bye game, if you will, on Tuesday night at home against East Tennessee State. Let's go ahead, transition, thoughts, takeaways from the win. The first thing I wrote down is that Caleb Wilson, Henry Vassar, they continue to carry the load. Caleb Wilson now leads the ACC in double-doubles with 7. And as I mentioned, I think 4 of his double-doubles have come while he scored, at least 20 points. And he could have had more had he made his free throws. He was just 7 of 13 from the foul line individually. The two combined, though, for 34 points, 20 rebounds, on 11 of 18 shooting from the field. So it's been what it's been the majority of the season. It's been high-level efficiency. Caleb Wilson with some dunks that really brought the arena to life a handful of times. I mean, the one on the second half where they played a 2-man game where they kind of get in that horn set, which is where you got 2 bigs at the foul line. You get the ball to Vassar, Wilson rolls to the basket, and he lobs it up, and he goes up and dunks it. I mean, Caleb Wilson was a good foot and a half above the rim when he goes and throws it down. But, that just another, what I would describe a workman-like performance from these two guys. I thought Vassar was on his way to another double-double. He had 10 and 8 in the first half, a much more quiet second half, but that's because Caleb Wilson had 12 and 5 individually in the second half. So both guys maybe left a play or two out there that they would have liked to have back, but kind of doing what they've done all year long, which is just pace Carolina. And as we said going into the game, USC Upstate wouldn't have much resistance, and that proved to be true with what these guys combined to do once again on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, a couple of turnovers from Caleb Wilson that, were, a little frustrating early in the game. Some of the defensive moments from him, I think, certainly had you scratching your head as well, as you talked about. But, I mean, yeah, from everything that everything else that you needed to see from him, from that standpoint, he was great in this game. I mean, he did everything that he needed to do on the offensive end of the floor. I mean, incredibly efficient, didn't shoot the ball a whole lot in this one, but incredibly efficient. 20 points on 6 of 7 from the field, 7 of 13 from the foul line. You'd like to see that number get just a little bit better, but hits a shot late in the game. Again, he seems to hit one of these shots just about every game where he turns around, faces up, and just knocks down about a 10, 12-foot jump shot. That was just beautiful and continues to show you how good of touch he has on the basketball. And, I mean, even in this game where you had some questions about him on the defensive end of the floor, 9 defensive rebounds, 9 of the 11 that he had were on the defensive end of the floor. And, Henry Vasar, relatively quiet day for him. I mean, 5 of 11. I thought there were a couple of moments or a couple of layups that he left out there that could have added to his day and had him up there in that 20-point range as well. But, pulls down 9 rebounds, 9 on the defensive end of the floor. Really, those two guys, 18 of the 30 defensive rebounds for Carolina. Those were the guys that were doing all the work. It was the rest of the group that wasn't really producing there. So, your big men are doing exactly what you would expect from them. I think this is, still, as we talked about in the last edition of the podcast, the best front court duo in the entire country going right now. This was, one of those games where you didn't necessarily need them to be as dominant. And this is kind of what we were hoping for, that you would get to a point where you would have a game where, hey, we don't need you guys to do everything. We have some other guys that are scoring the basketball on that offensive end of the floor. And I think that's what you saw today. You saw it from Luka. You saw it from Jonathan Powell, who we'll talk about here in a minute. But when they get help, I think that's what allows them to succeed the most. And so we'll see, moving forward, what it looks like if they can continue to get this help, if they continue to play the way that they've been playing. But this is a group that I don't think you necessarily have to worry about them. I didn't look at them and think that it was an effort thing. I think there were just some moments where Caleb, on the defensive end of the floor, wasn't paying attention to where exactly his man was. So that's certainly just something that has to be probably reiterated to him. But other than that, pretty satisfied with what we saw from the bigs today as they put up, as you mentioned, 34 and 20 rebounds combined. You'll take that just about any day of the week.
Yeah, that's going to be if they give Carolina that on a consistent basis, that should be good enough to win almost every time Carolina steps out. And that's they are the strength of the team. They are the backbone of the team. And even on a night where Caleb Wilson leaves some points at the foul line, was 6 of 7 from the field, just hyper efficient. He made a 3 as well. And so it's really fun watching these two guys play together, and they're still learning each other, and they're only going to continue to get better from here on out. So the second thing I wrote down, I thought this may have been top to bottom across the board, Luka Bogovic's best game. I thought his floor game today was the best that it's been. He posts 15, 5, and 5. Scores 15 points, 6 of 11 shooting, 3 of 6 from 3. He gives Carolina 5 boards. He gives Carolina 5 assists, and it looks like the acclimation to the college game is speeding up. It felt like he had one possession first half. He goes 1-on-3. The ball gets, I think it was either tipped out of bounds, possession arrow tied up, it goes the other way. That was the only time he made that kind of play. Felt like after that, it felt like he knew when to push in transition. He pushed and got a layup. He pushed and got a 3. I thought defensively he was active. I thought he did a really good job trying to extend, Carolina's defense. There were times where I thought, he was the best perimeter defender for Carolina on the floor, and that's not something we thought we'd be saying because the defensive aspect is not the strong suit of his game. And then you look at the fact that one subtle adjustment Hubert Davis has made is he puts Luka on the ball in the half court, and he lets him initiate some of those half court sets, especially when Carolina wants to get that, when they're on either wing and they want to get that 3/4 court, middle high ball screen and it's usually with Henry that he plays that two-man game with. It feels like every time he makes the right decision. Does he come off the screen and attack? Does he come off the screen and hit the bounce pass? Does he draw two defenders and kick the ball into the corner? And so we've been waiting for one of these types of performances from him where it was complete, where he scores, is efficient. His passing is being utilized because I think he's Carolina's most creative passer. And then, can you be a plus rebounder with your size? And you saw that today. And it's right now it's needed because you're getting uneven play from Kyan Evans. Derek Dixon is still a freshman, so he's going to have moments where he doesn't hit. You don't have Seth Trimble. You need Luka to start being like the Luka that we thought we were getting when he transferred in from the Adriatic League. And I think as much as any guy and during the week off, I think he was the guy that maybe benefited the most because he looked the part today. And that's the first time for an entire body of work for a game we could say he looks like a guy ready to be a difference maker night in, night out for Hubert Davis in Carolina.
Yeah, most complete performance from him that I've seen so far in a Carolina uniform. That was the thing. We've seen other performances where a second half looks really good. A first half looks really good. Maybe they're, those halves that he's efficient, but the other half, not necessarily efficient. Efficient in both halves of this game. I thought at times really picked Carolina up when there were moments where it did not look like Carolina really had much offensively. And so I give him a lot of credit. I thought he was aggressive driving the basket today. I think that's one of the things that you're looking for out of these guys is who's able to put pressure on the rim. We talked about it. Without Seth Trimble on the floor, you need someone that can actually do that. And I thought that he did that for most of the afternoon. I think you saw he was able to pass out of it and have a lot of success as well. You said it. I think he's Carolina's most savvy passer in terms of the way that he passes the basketball. There are definitely some plays that you would not think other guys on the team would be able to make in terms of passing, at a high enough level to these big men, to the perimeter. And we saw some of those moments in this game. But, the efficiency is what you really like. 6 of 11, you'll take that any day of the week from him. And then 3 of 6 from beyond the arc, 50%, you can live with that. I'm not saying that's the number that you have to be shooting at for the entire season. But if you could get into that 40% range, somewhere in there, even 38%, I think most Carolina fans would take that. So, this is the type of performance that you wanted to see from him. I also love the rebounding. As you pointed out, really good rebounding for his size. And one of the things that we've talked about is that when you do get Seth Trimble back, is the starting lineup going to be Luka Bogovac out there, or is he going to be a guy that's going to be coming off the bench? A day like today shows you that he's got the rebounding talent to be out there, to be playing starter-like minutes, and maybe to be in that starting 5 and push Jaren Stevenson to the bench. He out-rebounded him today. And so that's kind of what you're looking for, moments like that out of Luka. So really liked his performance. Think he's a guy that Carolina wants to continue to see play this way. And if he does, that's going to give Carolina the needed boost that they are looking for on the perimeter, which, we've been talking about here over the last couple of weeks, trying to find that guy. Maybe this is finally the time where Luka starts to turn it on and is settling into the college game, and now we're really going to get the best version of him.
Yeah, there's not a scenario where I think he gets moved to the bench in favor of Jaren Stevenson once you get Seth Trimble back, because I think he, as much as anybody on the roster, might benefit the most from Seth Trimble's return, because his ability to put pressure on the rim will force the defense to collapse. And this is true for like every shooter, but I think especially for Luka, he is a guy that needs clean looks. There aren't many contested shots you see him make, and there's nothing wrong with that. You just got to generate more of those looks. He got those today, and that's why I think he shot as efficiently as he did. And now we'll get to Jonathan Powell, because it gets us to a little mini discussion topic that kind of stemmed from my tweet about the game. he scores 17 points off the bench, ties a career high. It's his best performance so far as a Tar Heel. Is 6 of 9 from the field, 3 of 6 from three, and he scored a 17 points in 24 minutes. So really efficient scoring outburst from him. If you're a plus-minus geek, you would say that, he wasn't all that valuable because he was plus-minus 0 for Carolina today. But if you watch the way he played, you could tell Carolina – I thought Carolina's energy was at its best when he was on the floor because he just creates easy offense because he knows where to run in transition. He knows how to spread the floor. He's going to run to one of his corners. That's where he wants to go. But, he can put pressure on the rim as well. And that's something that Carolina needs without Seth Trimble. And this is what he's capable of doing. This is what he's capable of being. And kind of what I've kind of said here early on, I wouldn't say it's been a criticism. It's just been a talking point. It's like I've wanted him to be more aggressive because Carolina needs his shooting. And you see his shooting on display today, and you see what he's capable of doing. He played one more minute than Jaren Stevenson. And I'm not arguing that he should start over Jaren. But until Trimble comes back and Carolina makes the lineup switch I think they're going to make, which is you move Trimble to the bench and he becomes your backup 4, he becomes your backup 5. We need even minutes from Evans and Dixon. I think these guys need to split minutes as well because Jaren Stevenson just doesn't provide the scoring punch that Jonathan Powell does. He got some looks from 3 that he didn't make today that you feel like Jonathan Powell makes those more often than not. And I got some feedback where people think that it's disrespectful to Jaren Stevenson and I don't value his defense. That's not the case at all. I understand why he's on the floor. And look at the defensive play he made at Kentucky helped Carolina get a big win on the road against a team that just got a big win at home when they beat Indiana. So that quad 1 win looks a little bit better right now when a team from the Big Ten can't go in there and beat them. But this offense has got to start being more I don't know if volumatic is a word, but it needs to be more explosive. It needs to be more dynamic. Jonathan Powell offers that. You saw that on display this afternoon, and I really hope this is the beginning of his role emerging because I would like to think that, when this lineup is full and it's healthy, he's Carolina's first guy off the bench because he can do things quite simply that no one else on the bench can. And you saw that today in more ways than one.
Yeah, explosive scorer. That's what you're looking for is somebody off the bench that can really change the game when they come in. And that's what you saw today. 6 of 9 from the field, 3 of 6 from beyond the arc. Those numbers will definitely check out. And, the one thing that I never question with him when he's out there is his effort. I thought defensively, he did a really good job of bringing some energy to that end of the floor. There were still some moments where people were able to take him off the dribble, but at the same time, I think he's certainly a guy that brings to the table what you're looking for. And we knew that coming in. We knew he was the guy that, the numbers told you that he was a pretty decent defender. And then we knew that he was a guy that was going to be able to light it up from the outside. And it was all about how quickly he would settle in. It took him a little bit of time, but today is the type of performance that, shows you that he should be a part of what Carolina is doing and a pretty significant part of it. Maybe he's that first guy off the bench. Derek Dixon is probably the other guy that you're looking at and saying is, potentially in that running right now as the first guy off the bench because of that point guard spot and how fluid everything is with that spot. But I think, you're looking for guys that can make perimeter shots. You're looking for guys that can make Carolina's offense a little more complete. And I think this is the guy that's really been able to do it. I think there was some doubt early in the season that even with the flashes that we saw from him, that he was necessarily going to be that guy. But I think as the season has gone along, it's gotten to the point where, you've got to play this guy and you've got to play him significant minutes. So, I don't read into the plus minus stuff. I've told you that's an incredibly flawed stat. There are some times where you can read into it. When you have a guy like Caleb Wilson who's plus 22, it shows you that, yes, that's a guy that should be out on the floor pretty often. But when it's not everything, it definitely isn't everything. So I think, he is certainly a guy that brings something to Carolina's offense that they don't necessarily have. Love the performance that we got from him today, and think he's going to be a big part of what Carolina does. And the thing that you're starting to see now is when Seth Trimble comes back, Jaron Stevenson is still going to be a guy that's going to be valued. Even if they switch Derek Dixon into the starting lineup at some point for Kyan Evans is going to be valued. That's 8 guys that Carolina can count on coming off of the bench, or 8 guys in total, 3 guys coming off of the bench that Carolina will be able to count on no matter who it is. And then if you could find that guy at the 5, all of a sudden we're talking about 9 guys deep. When was the last time that Carolina could really talk like that about the depth on their team? Depth was really 7 guys. If you felt comfortable with that, most of the time you really felt comfortable with 6, but you had to play that 7th guy just because. Now you're looking at a team that has some legitimate depth here, some guys that can really score it off the bench. We've seen that here over the last few games. And so I think that's certainly something that Carolina should embrace. I think they are at this point. And I'm really happy that we're starting to see this depth sort of develop here, and you're seeing some guys that can do a little bit of different stuff for Carolina that they definitely need on the offensive end of the floor.
Well, and it's something we talked about so much this summer with the way that this roster was built. And I know that the previous 4 years in the preseason, in October, I was telling you, guys, there's depth. Carolina can play 7, 8, 9 guys on a consistent basis. And usually by early December, I was saying we can play 6 dudes, maybe 6, maybe 7, 6, maybe 7. But we said that if they didn't create depth, that would be an indictment on Hubert and this coaching staff. And to his credit, it's why you see Jaden Young get the minutes he got tonight. You see James Brown get the minutes he got tonight, and Zayden High. Now, granted, they're not big minutes, but these are minutes that are still valuable. So you can tell where it's still not finalized. We're still tinkering because, you don't have Trimble back, so you can't have your rotation set. But, yeah, when he does come back and you move Jaron Stevenson to the bench, I would imagine that you trust Dixon, Powell, and Stevenson to play 18-plus minutes for you coming off the bench. So that gives you 8 guys right there. And maybe you get to 9 with a combination of Brown, Dixon, or Brown and High. Maybe you get to 9 with Jaden Young as just another secondary ball handler. But they need the depth, and they've got it, and it's going to be pivotal once Carolina gets into conference play. The last thing we'll talk about before we get to our discussion, and we'll wrap this thing up, hand out some game balls. The point guard play continues to just be up and down. Kyan Evans today, 2 points, 1 of 5 from the field, 5 assists in 23 minutes, but was plus 12. If we'll reference that statistic again. Derek Dixon coming off, scores 14 against Georgetown, has a freshman performance after a week off with exams, 3 points, 1 of 4 from the field. He made a big 3 there in the second half. He did have 4 assists, 2 turnovers in 21 minutes. You like that they combined for 9 assists against 2 turnovers. That kind of supplements the lack of scoring punch. And it felt like, early on, Kyan Evans was aggressive. It felt like he was seeking his shot, something that I'm literally pounding the table for him to do much more consistently. And then I don't know what happens, but it just went away. And it wasn't like he battled foul trouble tonight like he has in other games. You look at Derek Dixon, and I don't know if he just didn't feel the need to be as aggressive as he was against Georgetown. It didn't feel like he was being taken away in any other way, but, a much more quiet performance than I think we expected after what he did against the Hoyas a week ago. We saw them on the court together, which I'm a big fan of, and I think you need to see more of that moving forward, but it's really just a mystery why the point guard play has been the way that it's been this year. I'd still argue that it's better than what you got from Elliot Cadeau because they're not as big as negatives defensively, and they don't let their mistakes kind of compound and carry over and into the next game or whatever. But Carolina can beat USC Upstate with their point guards combining to score 5 points. They can beat East Tennessee State with that type of production. Maybe you can beat Ohio State on a neutral floor, but once you get into conference play and you got to go on the road against a league that is top to bottom better than it was a year ago, you're going to need more from this point guard spot. And so after thinking that maybe they had turned the corner with what they did against Georgetown, I'm not going to say it was a step back today, but was definitely not the performance you would have liked to see at home against a mid-major from the Big South.
Yeah, I mean, scoring-wise, it wasn't, but I think there were other guys that were scoring the basketball for you. I mean, I'd much rather have the ball in the hands of a guy like Caleb Wilson, who is 6 of 7 from the field on the day. You'd much rather have Luka Bogovac with what he was doing on the offensive end of the floor. And then Jonathan Powell, I wouldn't have taken anything away from his performance in order for these guys to score the ball a little bit more. So maybe it was just that they were deferring to some of these other guys. It felt like they weren't necessarily hunting their shots, especially, I think Dixon was the guy that to me didn't look like he was necessarily hunting his shot for most of the day. A couple of the shots that he did take, he leaves short too. So, I mean, yeah, it was just an off day for him. I mean, Kyan Evans, I think we just have to come to the conclusion that, this is a guy that's going to be relatively inconsistent. No matter what you are hoping for, there isn't going to be that guaranteed night in, night out performance from him. I think he's just an inconsistent player right now. And maybe like last year at Colorado State, he gets into conference play and all of a sudden he finds his footing and there is that consistency. But I mean, on a night where you're not scoring the basketball, the one thing that you can do as a point guard is at least share the ball at a high level. And I think he did. 5 assists in this game. That's plenty. That's good enough for that end of the floor. And then Derek Dixon gives you 4 when he was on the floor as well. So, yeah, I get it. It wasn't the best performance from those guys. I think defensively they made things really easy at times on the guards from USC Upstate to be able to get where they wanted to go. That was more where I was frustrated with these guys for this performance. But I think offensively, it was just one of those nights where shots weren't necessarily falling for them. They decided, let's look around to the other guys on this team and let's put some trust that they're going to be able to do that. Your point, though, is a good one, that when you play a team like Ohio State, when you play teams that you're going to face in the ACC, you're going to need more from these guys. They're going to have to give you more than 5 combined points. So you're looking for more steady production from somebody. It's got to be one of them. That's the thing that you're looking for. It's just somebody give me consistency. If Kyan Evans wants to be the guy that's hot and cold and Derek Dixon wants to be the consistent one, well, then we're going to switch those guys out of the starting lineup or mainly the closing lineup, and Derek Dixon is going to be your guy that you're going to see down the stretch of games. Kyan Evans will be the guy that can get hot for you off the bench. I think one thing that I would have liked to see a little bit more today was him playing that 2-guard spot. We didn't really see that much today. So I've said it. I think that's an area that Kyan Evans might be able to succeed, is playing off ball, because he did that a lot last year at Colorado State. Meek Clifford was a guy that handled a lot of the responsibilities in the half court. And when he was a guy that could just catch and shoot, it really fit his game. So I'd like to see more of that moving forward. But we're getting to that point where you're not going to necessarily have to see that all that often, because you're going to have Seth Trimble back on the floor at that 2-guard spot. But I mean, I'd still like to see some lineups where they experiment with that a little bit more. So yeah, not the performances that you would hope offensively for them scoring wise, but I do think that it wasn't nearly as bad as some people might make it out to be, with them scoring just a combined 5 points in this game.
All right, let's get to the discussion topic. We still got to hand handballs. We're going on nearly an hour. was maybe not my intention talking about a win over USC Upstate. But here we are. How concerning, I guess, would you be about today's effort? Like, do you think this is something that permeates, that carries over, that lingers into Tuesday's game ahead of your next real big test against Ohio State in Atlanta? Or do you feel like with where the leadership is on this team, with the frustration that was communicated from Hubert Davis, and I imagine the other coaches felt the same way, do you feel like, this is something that we shouldn't be as concerned about as we've been in years past, where it feels like when Carolina has had these types of performances, they've kind of tended to linger more than they should?
I mean, to me, hell no, you should not be that concerned about this. I don't think that this is one that should be raising alarms in the heads of people. I think, honestly, it's one of those things that happens from time to time that we've seen with this team, and that we've seen especially post-exam week. I think this is just one of those games that you write off as it was a 2:00 game on a Saturday. And this team came out, they rolled the ball out and thought that they were going to be able to win this game. And it wasn't nearly as easy as they thought it was going to be. The only reason you put in the show rundown on a scale of 1 to 10, how concerned would you be with today's effort? I would say a 2. And the only reason that I would say a 2 and not a 1 is because we've seen this before. This season, we saw it against Navy, where they weren't thrilled with what they put out there. They weren't thrilled with the way that they closed the game down. So this isn't the first time that we've seen this from this group. But at the same time, in no way should you be that concerned about this. I think this is a group that just thought this was going to be a relatively easy opponent. As you mentioned, this was a team that was supposed to finish last in the Big South. I think they thought they were going to be able to come out, roll this team, similar to what they did against Central Arkansas, what they did against NC Central, and it just never really materialized. They got a much better fight from this team, who was able to knock down some shots from the outside, was able to compete enough on the glass to be able to hang around. So I'm not concerned about it. I think it is certainly one of those games that, again, you can point back to if you're Hubert Davis and say, as they get ready for ACC play, this is one that you got to remember, and you cannot bring that type of effort to the table again, or you will get beat. But I think that this group will be perfectly fine and should be able to rebound in the game against East Tennessee State on Tuesday night.
Yeah, with where the leadership is on this team, Vassar, Wilson, even Seth Trimble, who's injured, I think Carolina will bounce back. But I believe more in that because I think of the way Hubert Davis handled the way he talked about the game with Jones Angel, with the media and his full-blown press conference. He wasn't happy. They'll celebrate the win because you have no choice but to. That's winning's hard, but they did not meet the standard that they've set for themselves. And so, look, we've seen this plenty of times. I referenced it in the preview. This was the game that as coaches they hate the most, as much as any game on the schedule. I, as a fan, because I've seen this happen time and time again, usually Carolina responds in a big way after that once they kind of get this out of their system. So, like, if I had to put it on the scale of 1 to 10, maybe a 3, but a 3 might be a little too high. Hand out some game balls, and then we'll get out of here. I'll go first. I'll give it to my guy, Jonathan Powell. This is a guy that I've been stumping for the most, kind of been, basically pleading for Hubert Davis to play as equal amount of time as Jared Stevenson. And he responds today in a big way, as I mentioned. I'll give you his full stat line: 17 points, 6 of 9 shooting, 3 of 6 from the 3-point line, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, 1 rebound, 0 assists, 1 foul, did so all in 24 minutes. It tied a career high. It gave Carolina instant energy and life off the bench. He shot the ball well from the outside. He shot the ball well from the field overall. This could be what really gets him going and becoming that sixth man that Carolina needs off the bench. And so I'll give my game ball to this game to Jonathan Powell.
Yeah, I'll go with Caleb Wilson. I think that's the easy one to go alongside. I mean, Lucas certainly had a really strong game as well, but when you give me 20 and 11 in a game where, at times it felt like, that we weren't talking about him for a stretch of the game, I still think he's just incredibly impressive. And the way that he was able to, in the second half, get to the foul line. Now, you got to be a little bit more efficient when you get to the foul line, but the way that he was able to get there with what he was doing on the offensive end of the floor really, I think, helped Carolina to establish the offensive rhythm that they needed to pull away from USC Upstate. So 20 points in this one, 6 of 7 from the field, 11 rebounds, 2 on the offensive end, 9 on the defensive end, 3 assists from him as well, 2 blocks and a steal. You love what he brings to the table, and I think he deserves the game ball here from me. And by the way, you said that Jonathan Powell is your guy. He is actually neither of our guys. That would be Ashton's guy because he tried to tell us in the preseason that he was going to be more involved. And that's one thing. I think of it just about every time that we see Jonathan Powell making an impact. He definitely called that in the preseason, so we got to give that one to him.
Yeah, we don't need to give Ashton any more props for his opinions because he thinks he's God's gift to podcasting despite being 17 years old and also having some more bad takes than good takes. But we'll take it, man, because if Jonathan Powell's playing well, that probably means Carolina's playing well. That means Carolina's probably winning. And there's nothing we love more than seeing the Heels, get wins, no matter, even if it was the day where we did not maybe love the overall energy, effort, and enthusiasm that we saw from the team on the court. That's going to wrap it up for this edition of the podcast. In the meantime, guys, we will direct you guys to the website, HeelToughBlog.com. Coverage of today's game can be found there. I had you ready to go with the preview. The recap is posted, so you can go and check out my thoughts and takeaways from Carolina's win. Kind of a quick turnaround for me. I'll be getting you ready for the East Tennessee State game on Tuesday. That game preview will go up the game morning of. Recap might be posted the same night as well as I continue to take you through the basketball season. Anthony has you covered all things Carolina football. Big news out of Chapel Hill on Friday. Bill Belichick finally made those changes that we've been talking about. Freddie Kitchens fired. He also fired Mike Prefer. Anthony has you covered with who Carolina should look to for their next offensive coordinator for 2026 and beyond. And I'll keep you up to date on all things recruiting, transfer portal, and coaching moves if there are more of those to come. So make sure you go to the website, HeelToughBlog.com, the latest and best coverage of Carolina basketball and Tar Heel football. As for the pod, you guys know where to find us. Every major podcasting platform, just search the Four Corners Podcast. It will pop up. There, we encourage you guys rate, review, and subscribe. That way you don't miss any audio editions of the show. If you consume the podcast from a visual platform, the best way to keep up with us, like and follow the Facebook page at Heel Tough Blog. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at Heel Tough Blog. We're trying to get to 600 subscribers by the end of the year, so go and do that. Or you can follow me on Twitter at HTB_Josh. The second that we go live, you will be notified. You can jump in and be the part of the conversation, like our good buddies Myron Goodman, Clint Moses, Lenny Ryan, so on and so forth. But that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the show. I do thank Anthony once again for hosting with me. We want to thank you for watching and listening. And as always, go Tar Heels.